You know, when I was a senior in high school, I went on this mission trip, right? And it was an established tradition all the way through high school that we would go on mission trips every single summer. And every single summer, it was like Christmas for us, right? We'd spend all year anxiously waiting to open the present. That was hours and hours in a 15-passenger van full of high schoolers. And it probably wasn't Christmas for those adult leaders, but it was for us. And looking back, I'm not sure what our favorite part of those trips was, whether it was getting to spend time with your friends or getting to explore different parts of the country. I don't know if it was the food or the serving or just this feeling that for the first time in your life, you were an active participant of this relationship that you have with God. It's the one moment that you felt like you were in control of that relationship. But the truth is, it was all so important. It was all so formative. So a typical mission trip with my home church would include 4 to 5 of those large vans, 30 to 40 kids, and 6 to 8 adult leaders. And we'd go to some community in need. Ideally, a community that had been struck by some disaster, maybe New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, or Joplin after the tornado. And we'd stay in a church or a mission center of some kind. And we'd be isolated in this place by ourselves, and we'd work the week. And we'd share these meals with each other, and we'd share worship, and we'd play games and laugh and relax. And we worked side by side with people that we'd come to know over all of those years, people that we come to love. But you know, that trip we took my senior year was a little bit different. We went to a different place. We had a different kind of trip. That was the year that we went to Pittsburgh. Now, if you know anything about Pittsburgh, you know that it's a working class city. A city of great people and great history. It was not a disaster zone, but it kind of felt like one. It felt like this spirit was in this place, that it just needed help to stand up. And that summer, we worked with a mission team that was all about repairing that community. And as a result, that mission organization was planted right in the heart of that community. They had a mission center that was on the campus of a high school that got shut down. And it was there that my youth group gathered with hundreds of students from all over the country to be a part of change. And that first night of worship was a shell shock. Imagine thinking that you're going to go to a restaurant with your best friends, your favorite people, and then you get in that restaurant and you realize that there's one table for everyone at the restaurant to eat at together. It's exactly what it was like. But even in the midst of that newness, we worshiped with people from near and far. We sang, and we laughed, and we praised a God that could care less what zip code we came from. And it was spectacular. But after all of that rejoicing, all of that unity and love, we got broken apart. By quite literally, our group got broken apart. Each youth group was split into little subgroups with kids and adults on different work groups. Separated like best friends in the class that just can't quite keep it together. You go sit over here, and you go sit over here. And so we watched that night as all of our friends got separated into other work groups. And we got grouped with kids from all over the country. And I got lucky enough to be in a group with 2 of my friends, but also kids from Ohio and New Jersey. But I got my dad. That was the positive thing out of all of it. But little did I know that this experience would change my understanding of where we actually belong in the world. Our scripture from Ephesians is a beautiful one. This whole letter is Paul writing and pouring his heart out about what the church is supposed to be. I want you to hear it with new ears here. But don't take any of this for granted. It was only yesterday that you outsiders to any of God's ways had no idea of any of this. Didn't know the first thing about the way God works. Hadn't the faintest idea of Christ. You knew nothing of that rich history of God's covenants and promises in Israel. Hadn't a clue about what God was doing in the world at large. And now, because of Christ, dying that death, shedding that blood, you, who were once out of it altogether, are in on everything. The Messiah has made things up between us so that we're now together on this, both non-Jewish outsiders and Jewish insiders. He tore down the wall we used to keep each other at a distance. And he repealed the law code that had become so clogged with fine print and footnotes that it hindered more than it ever helped. And then he started over. Instead of continuing with two groups of people separated by centuries of animosity and suspicion, he created a new kind of human being, a fresh start for everybody. Christ brought us together through his death on the cross. The cross got us to embrace, and that was the end of hostility. Christ came and preached peace to you outsiders and peace to us insiders. He treated us as equals and so made us equals. Through him, we both share the same spirit and have equal access to the Father. That's plain enough, isn't it? You're no longer wandering exiles. This kingdom of faith is now your home country. You're no longer strangers or outsiders. You belong here with as much right to the name Christian as anyone. God is building a home. He's using us all, irrespective of how we got here and what he is building. He used the apostles and the prophets for the foundation, and now he is using you, fitting you in brick by brick, stone by stone, with Jesus Christ as the cornerstone that holds all the parts together. We see it taking shape day after day. A holy temple built by God. All of us built into it. A temple in which God is quite at home. What we read in this passage is that the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ is what made it possible that both Jews and Gentiles can live together in this cohesive relationship of peace and reconciliation. And this creation of a new humanity is ultimately the fulfillment of God's covenant. But what does that mean? Like really, to us, to American Christians, neither Jew nor really Gentile. You know, we were having a barbecue at our house, our last social endeavor before baby comes. And our friends came over, and we were so focused on cleaning the house and getting the barbecue grill started and having everything in order that we weren't aware of the events of the day. And my friend walks in the house, and he says, I don't know if it was AI or if it was real, but I'm pretty sure Trump got shot. And I put it out of my brain and said, I'm just going to be present in the moment, but I hope everything is okay. And then for the next week and all the days that have come after, it feels like we're more divided than ever. It feels like a strange time to be an American Christian. And then this week, this Ephesians text pops up about what it really means to belong. Well, my friends, it really means that we ought to spend less time building walls. We probably ought to spend a little bit more time building bridges. It means that we need to be advocates and not adversaries. It means that we need to be the church that we say we are. When I was 17 years old, I learned what unity was. And it was in that mission trip van in the midst of inner city Pittsburgh. And it was there that I fell in love with the strangers that were working beside me. Strangers that I'd only met days before. And it wasn't because I knew them from the inside out. It wasn't because I knew their story. It wasn't because they looked like me or sounded like me. It wasn't because they were from where I was from. It was because I knew their heart. And when I saw their hearts, I recognized them. And maybe for the first time in all of my life, I belonged. We spent far too much time using our faith as a reason to separate ourselves from each other. We spent far too much time investing in intolerance and in judgment. And this passage from Ephesians is not a dream that Paul had for some utopia that we might live in someday, that we might finally reach this place. It was a warning to the entire human family that the bonds that unite us are far greater than the differences that divide us. That who we are is so much more than where we came from, so much more than the identities that are placed on us by society. It's the heart that God placed in you and in me. That when we look at each other and truly see each other, we might even get the slightest glimpse of God. That love might be the thing that transcends. My friends, I don't know all things, not even close, but I do know that God is calling us together. That God is calling us towards unity, towards a common faith, that we might grow closer together instead of even further apart. That somehow, together, we might reverse the damage done by the tides of divide, and instead, that we might all, hand in hand, reach for lasting bonds that are built in love. When I was 17, I learned that I belong. And I'm ashamed to admit that so many times along the way I forgot. I forgot what it means to belong. And I'm sure you have a time or two in your life forgotten that you do indeed belong. Not just in the small places, but in the grand and beautiful places too. That you forgot that there's room for all of us in the arms of God. But I can tell you what, I think I'm done forgetting. And I hope that you are too. Because when I see you, I see the heart of God. And it's with that heart that I belong. Thanks be to God.
These are your thoughts, Tatum. This is the hope of God set free. These are your thoughts.